Hey, welcome back to Feats of Strength. You guys already know what this video is about. You read the description, you clicked the thumbnail. Let's get on with it. Today we're going to be building a bike I've wanted to make for a really long time, a tall track bike. The donor frame for this project is really special to me. I bought it about 15 years ago, built it, rode it for years, gave it to a friend of mine who lived in Seattle. He rode it for a number of years before the seat tube cracked down at the bottom bracket. He brought it down to Portland. Another friend of ours repaired the frame with a stick welder before it was ridden for several more years when a seat post got seized in the seat tube. We obviously had to cut it to get the seat post out, and the frame was declared dead. But there's still plenty of good tubing and a whole lot of history on this bike, so it's time for it to live on and become something new. A couple other things that we've got here to work with. I have a selection of miscellaneous bike tubes, front fork, rear end off another bike, seat post, handlebars, some cranks that have a particularly cool chain ring on them. This is a race-face downhill ring that I've been wanting to use for years. Other key things, got to have a chain and a headset, and there might be some other stuff in here. All right, let's deal with this seat tube situation. As you can see, the crack is really bad, but I have a plan. The only way to recover from this is to grab a seat tube off of another bike. I happen to know that this particular seat tube is the perfect diameter to slide down inside the broken seat tube on the track frame. So we'll be able to slide it down inside, plug weld it, do a little weld around the top, and we should be good to go. All right, time to cut off the back. Oh, whoops. I forgot to plug this in. Hang on one second. All right, time to cut off the back end and get to business. Well, if the bike wasn't dead before, it is now. All right, let's clean up some of these other odds and ends. I'm going to take a moment to remove paint from all the areas I'm going to be welding. To do that, I like to use a wire wheel for my grinder. The nice thing is it removes the paint without removing any metal, which is key because this is a lot of thin tubing. I want to make sure I've got gloves, a face shield, and I've also got on a respirator because I sure like breathing. All right, with everything all cleaned up, we slide the seat tube into the frame, and we can weld through these plug holes. That'll lock the seat tube down inside the frame before we weld around the top. You'll see me switching back and forth between TIG and MIG a little bit. This frame was originally fillet brazed together. The TIG welder likes things really clean. It does not like any of the brazing. That's when I switch over to the MIG welder. It tends to kind of mow through a lot of that stuff and can deal with contaminated areas a little bit better and still get a solid weld. The next step is to extend the head tube. So what I have here is an extra long piece of tubing. It's already perfect for this. I've got it online at a frame supply shop. And a little trick for extending it is to use a piece of angle iron like this, bit of aluminum angle as our brace and alignment gauge. So clamp it to the top head tube, make sure that the head tube's fully seated, and we're going to clamp the lower piece down in. The two ends butt up perfectly, and we can tack them together. And there you have it. We've got the head tube extended. We're well on our way to making ourselves a tall bike. Everything's nice and aligned so far. Let's move on to layout. I'm going to do most of the layout on the fabrication table here using an angle finder. I'm going to set it to about 72, 73 degrees and draw a nice line here that I'll use as an alignment reference for my head tube angle. Next up, slide the fork into the frame and get a sense of where that front axle is going to land and mark that on the table. I like to scribe a little line where the headset is going to go. And lastly, trying to figure out about where my body weight is going to be when I'm riding this, and I want to make sure that the rear axle is behind that. I want it to be a fun and snappy bike, but I don't want it to be a wheelie monster. Here's a cool little thing that I started doing for coping all of my tubing. These are just 3D printed parts that I printed on a couple different tubing sizes and angles, and they're perfect. Slide them over the tube, scribe your line, and all you have to do is just cut to that line and it'll butt up perfectly. You can see that this new horizontal tube that I'm putting in, I have it shimmed up on both ends before I tack it in place so I can make sure that everything is nice and aligned. Here we have the chain stays and seat stays off of the original frame. Now these would have been way too short, so we're going to come up with a way to extend them. And to do that, I'm going to use this other rear triangle. It doesn't have to be a track frame. This just happens to be tubing that's very similar in diameter. I'll show you what I mean. So with everything all cut and laid out, we're saving the track fork ends off the old frame. We'll get back to those. And I'm going to take and extend the seat stays. So I'm just going to find a point here where both tubes are about the same diameter. Scribe a line in both. And we're going to cut those drill holes to plug weld them. Now because this is a weird shaped size of tubing, it's not real easy to sleeve the inside. So my plan is to take the bit that we cut off, use that, split it in half, so we get two pieces, and those two pieces, hopefully, should slide down inside the old chain stays, and we've got a little bloop, bit of metal inside that we can weld to. There's going to be so much force on the bottom of this bike. I want to make sure that these are sleeved properly on the inside and welded on the outside. Just a regular butt weld isn't going to be strong enough. The seat stays are a lot simpler because everything's round, so it's way easier to find a piece of tube that fits inside and get it welded up. Here it is the next day. Got the frame ready to put the chain stays on. You'll see that I did go back last night and I changed the angle of this little extension. I just wanted it more in line with the seat tube on the bike. For aligning everything, I've got it all resting on this larger piece of rectangular tubing and braced. I want everything to be in perfect alignment when I put the back wheel on. A good way to check is if your table's nice and flat, you can take a metal ruler, place it flat on the table, and see exactly where the tube touches that ruler. And if it's the same on all parts of the frame, it's nice and level. To get the back wheel on, I have this wheel here. It does have the tire on it, which is actually kind of a close diameter to the tubing of the frame. But I did have to add a couple of shims here in the corners just to get it at the same point. And again, I'm going to check my level by seeing where the ruler touches the tire. So the whole point of this is to make sure that the frame is in line with the wheel and everything is locked down before I go and put the chain stays on. These are going to be about the same, so once I get one cut, I can just transfer some of those cut marks over to the other, brace it up from the bottom, and weld it in place. And on to the other side. Here's a quick tip for checking the chain line. I just use a nice straight edge, brace it against the chain ring, and make sure that it goes right down and comes to the right alignment on the cog. But when I did that, I realized I have a bit of a problem with the chain line itself. It's definitely going to touch the chainstay on this side. Luckily, I just tack welded everything, so it's easy to pull off. I'm going to try a little drop chainstay approach. Then we get the seat stays in. Once those are in, pull it off the table, throw some wheels in it, and see how it's looking. So far, so good. I'm really enjoying the lines. I got the whole chain line sorted out. Need to add in a couple of gussets just for a little extra bracing. And back here in the back, I got to figure out some sort of a brace on the seat stays and the chain stays. Hopefully it's not too noodly when I ride it. We'll see. Moving on to extending the head tube. I like to just slide the fork into the frame run a tape measure down the inside, and then take a measurement of just how long I need to extend it to. Go a little bit long on that because you can always cut it shorter later. And again, we're going to internally sleeve this extension. Any of the spots where I wasn't able to internally sleeve the bike, I'm going to put on a little extra to brace it from the outside, just to make it as stiff as possible. And once we got that, we can start getting the whole frame welded up. Originally, my plan was to TIG weld everything so it would be all nice and clean. And it was going along just fine, but you know what? Honestly, it's a freak bike. Who cares? Let's get it done fast and have some fun. I'd rather get to riding it, so we're switching to the MIG. One of the last steps that I need to do is literally come up with a step for the back of the bike. And I like the little X pattern brace so much, but I wanted one more lower just to keep things stiff. We got it all welded up. There you go. I just need to cut down the steer tube extension that I did, now that I can do a more formal fit into the frame. Clean up the edges a little bit and get the star nut set in. Just a little extra long bolt here and tap it in slowly and you're good to go. Just covering up the bearing surfaces with some masking tape and then we'll get it painted up. All right, nearly done. Just have to get the last few things installed, throw some wheels on it, and then we can take it out for a spin. One thing I hadn't told you until now is that lucky for all of us, my town happens to have a velodrome, and it's just down the street. Yes, lovely Alpenrose Velodrome. Made all the way back in 1967. This velodrome is on a property that's not only had races, but cyclocross races, Little League World Series, a real pillar for the community. There's just one small problem. That's right. They shut it down. Just before the start of the pandemic, this property sold to some real estate developers. There were some terms to allow for people to continue using the track and the surrounding area for one more year, but then the pandemic hit and races were canceled, so they just shut the track down completely. Well, I'm just as disappointed as you guys are that I don't have the opportunity to rip around on the velodrome here today. Honestly, this sucks for more than just me and riding my bike around this. This is a whole community that's been impacted. So as much as I'd like to be riding my bike here today, it's just not going to happen. Sorry. Wait. No, hang on. There's some trails over here. I've got a better idea.